That fight over redistricting continuing in Texas, where last night Governor Greg Abbott filed an emergency petition with the state Supreme Court to remove a Democratic lawmaker from office. Representative Jean Wu and others left the state to delay Republican efforts to redraw congressional district lines. Governor Abbott says the lawmakers abandoned his duty, and that's a claim that Representative Wu denies. Democrats from other states are joining in the fight.
We're not rolling over. And I've been saying to these Texas Republicans, if you want a showdown, well, you're going to get a showdown. And here it is right now here in Illinois.
All right, this is starting to heat up a little bit. Joining me now to talk about it more is Emory political science professor, Dr. Andra Gillespie. Welcome to the show again.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so this seems rare. And first of all, is it rare that these redistricting fights get intense and receive this much national attention?
Well, let's just say this is not the first time that this has happened, and it's not the first time that this has happened in Texas. In the 2000s, there was a similar redistricting battle where some Democratic legislators fled the state. And at that time, you had then House Republican leader Tom DeLay send the U.S. Marshals to go collect them and bring them back to Texas so that they could continue with the redistricting process. So it seems very similar to Senator John Cornyn now asking for the FBI to go find these Democratic lawmakers who have gone to far-flung states like Illinois and New York, among others, to bring them back here. And this is a practice that has been contested in the Supreme Court, so there is enough case law around it to kind of justify what's going on. And so the short answer is there's nothing in the Constitution that says that you cannot do a mid-decade redistricting process. So Texas is within its legal right to be able to do so. And the Supreme Court, as it stands right now, does not prevent political gerrymandering. So you can gerrymander for partisan reasons. You can't gerrymander for racial reasons, especially in ways that will hurt racial and ethnic minorities. And so I think, Governor Abbott and Texas Republicans feel completely justified in their actions.
Yeah. What really set off the controversy here?
Well, I mean, it's because this is openly blatant partisanship that's happening here. Because typically in midterm elections, the president's party tends to lose seats and you have a razor thin Republican majority in the House of Representatives. Texas is redrawing its district lines in the hopes of creating 5 more Republican seats in the House of Representatives that might actually be enough for them to be able to maintain their majority, because there are very few competitive House seats around the country. And so this just looks like a blatant power grab, and Democrats are, using whatever recourse they have. So within the state of Texas, you have the Texas Democrats who are leaving the state so that they don't have a quorum, so that they can't hold the session. And then in response to this, you have Democratic-led states with Democratic legislatures who are vowing, or at least attempting to explore the possibility of figuring out how they can redraw their district lines to take seats away from Republicans so that they can offset the gains that Texas is trying to make here.
Why are the Democrats taking such a strong stance in this particular case?
Well, one, because Democrats are in the minority and they don't have much leverage to try to counter the Trump administration and the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. And so this may be one thing that they would be willing to do. They've typically not usually gone this far in terms of redistricting. To be clear, there are states, Democratic-controlled states, that have done redistricting and have taken the lion's share of their seats in Congress, even more than perhaps voters in their state would have wanted to do so. But now they're saying that, look, you have to play tit for tat, and now is not the time to be talking about nonpartisan redistricting and independent redistricting that's supposed to be fair for all. Now it's time to make this a blood sport. And if the Republicans are going to play this, then they're going to counter with, their tools as best as they can.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this earlier. We're talking about Georgia now, and we've had our fair share of fights over redistricting, of course. You took us back, I think, sharing with when we also saw some fleeing, if you will. How has redistricting impacted our state?
Well, that was Texas. I mean, we just went through a redistricting round, but that was court ordered redistricting based on a lawsuit that claimed successfully that Black voters were being disenfranchised in violation of the Voting Rights Act. And so we saw that there were a number of congressional districts, the 6th and the 7th district in particular, whose lines had to be redrawn. And then we also saw some state legislative districts that were redrawn. That's different than doing it for partisan reasons. This was being done in Georgia. And the same thing actually happened in the 2000s in Georgia, and in the 90s. Well, in the 2000s, it was political. In the 90s, it was based on sort of court orders that said that certain district lines had to be redrawn in order to protect the voting rights of African American voters.
Where do we go from here?
This is a zero-sum game and a race to the bottom. And so while Democrats and Republicans seem to be willing to kind of engage in mutually assured destruction, ultimately, at the end of the day, I kind of take the side of former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's the people who are going to end up losing out on this. I think that there is a strong case to be made for taking districting out of partisan hands and out of the control of state legislatures until like they have to do the final approval. And I think that there's a strong case to be made for nonpartisan redistricting. At this particular political moment where everything is so polarized, no side is actually going to be willing to make those types of concessions. And so what we're going to end up happening is you're going to have districts where there are going to be lots of very safe Democratic and very safe Republican districts where there could be minorities of voters in those districts who actually really don't feel empowered to participate in the process or feel like their say is actually being honored, in terms of decision making. And so, this is just yet another sad example of what polarization gets you. It gets gamesmanship and it gets people playing technically within the boundaries, but not necessarily sort of following what was the ethical spirit of what some of these laws were intended to do. And so there are people who argue gerrymandering's been going on, since the founding of the country. But, this is an example of sort of what happens when you carry this too far and without regulation. What the Supreme Court, I think, would probably say in response to what I just said was then Congress should try to go fix this. And at this point, we don't see a Congress that's willing to address that.
Gotcha. Dr. Gillespie, really appreciate you joining us, and thank you for all your insight.